Admiral Kim Hannah pressed her palms against the cold metal railing of the command bridge. Through the massive viewing window, she could see 3 enormous alien ships floating in the darkness of space. Each vessel was at least twice the size of her flagship, the UES Unity. Strange blue lights pulsed along their hulls like a slow heartbeat. "How long have we been waiting, Minho?" she asked, without turning around. Communications Officer Lee Minho checked his console. 34 minutes since we sent our diplomatic package, Admiral. Still no response from the Kelter fleet. Hannah took a deep breath. 3 years of planning had led to this moment. Earth's first official meeting with an alien civilization. The Unity carried over 2,000 people, diplomats, scientists, cultural experts, and translators. All of them hoping to make history. "Admiral," called out Navigator Kim Soman from her station. "The alien ships are moving into a new formation." Hannah finally turned from the window. The bridge crew looked tense, but excited. Most of them had never seen an alien vessel before today. The 3 Kelter ships were arranged in a triangle pattern around the human diplomatic fleet. "Maybe it's a ceremonial formation," suggested Science Officer Choi Wanbin. "Many Earth cultures use geometric patterns for important meetings." Tactical Officer Park Ji-ho frowned at his displays. "I'm reading energy fluctuations from their ships. Could be their version of a weapons system powering up, or maybe just advanced sensors scanning us." "Stay calm, everyone," Hannah ordered. "Remember, we're here to build bridges, not walls." The Unity wasn't alone. 2 escort frigates, the UES Seoul and the US Busan, flanked the diplomatic vessel. Captain Song Minji commanded the Seoul with her crew of 380. Captain On Seojin led the Bison's 390 personnel. Both ships carried minimal weapons enough to defend against pirates or asteroids, but nothing that could threaten a real military force. "Admiral, incoming transmission from the lead Kelter vessel," Minho announced suddenly. "Put it on the main screen." The view screen flickered to life. A strange alien face appeared, gray skin, 4 eyes arranged in a diamond pattern, and a mouth that seemed to move sideways instead of up and down. When it spoke, the translation software converted the sounds into English. "Human vessels, you will provide complete technical specifications of your weapon systems immediately." Hannah exchanged glances with her officers. "Tell them we're a diplomatic mission. Our weapons are minimal and defensive only." Minho transmitted the message. The aliens' for eyes seemed to narrow. "Unacceptable. You carry fusion reactors capable of planetary destruction. You will surrender your vessels for inspection or be destroyed." "What?" Hannah stepped forward. "We're using standard civilian power systems. Our reactors couldn't harm a moon, let alone a planet." But the transmission had already ended. "Admiral," Park Ji-ho called out, his voice tight with worry. "The Kelter ships are definitely charging weapons now. Energy readings are off the charts." "Open all channels to the Kelter fleet," Hannah ordered quickly. "Tell them we're here in peace. We have families on these ships, children." Before Minho could send the message, space erupted in brilliant light. The first plasma beam struck the UES Seoul directly in the engine section. Captain Song Minji's ship broke apart like a toy, pieces of metal spinning away in all directions. There was no time for escape pods, no time for final words. 380 people died in an instant. "Evasive maneuvers," Hannah shouted, but the Unity was a diplomatic vessel, not a warship. It moved like a floating city, slow and graceful. The second Kelter ship fired at the EU's Busan captain on Seojin's vessel managed to launch half its escape pods before the plasma tore through the hull. Hannah watched in horror as the frigate's reactor overloaded, creating a small star that burned for 3 seconds before fading to nothing. "They're targeting our engines," reported Park Ji-ho. "Hull breach on decks 7 through 12. We're losing power fast." Emergency alarms screamed throughout the Unity. Red lights bathed the bridge as systems failed one by one. Through the chaos, Hannah could hear the sounds of her crew preparing for the worst. All hands abandoned ship, she ordered into the ship-wide communications. This is not a drill. Get to the escape pods now. As her command crew rushed toward the emergency exits, Hannah took one last look at her bridge. Photos of her family sat on her desk, her husband Jinwoo, her daughter Yuna, her son Minsu. She grabbed the pictures and ran. The escape pod bay was packed with terrified people. Scientists clutched their research data. Diplomats held their children. Everyone moved with the desperate efficiency of people who knew death was seconds away. Hannah's pod launched just as the third Kelter ship fired again. The blast tore through the Unity's center section, splitting the great ship in half. She watched through the small window as her flagship died, taking hundreds of people with it. The Kelter vessels stayed long enough to destroy every piece of debris larger than a shuttle. They wanted no survivors except the few who had escaped in pods. Then they vanished into hyperspace, leaving behind only wreckage and the cold emptiness of space. As Hannah's pod drifted toward the nearest human outpost, she made a promise to the darkness. The Kelter had just made the biggest mistake in galactic history. They had shown humanity what they were truly capable of, and humanity would remember. Fleet Commander Vexstar stood in the center of his ship's war room, watching the battle recordings. For the third time, his 4 eyes tracked every detail as human ships exploded in brilliant flashes of light. The tactical display showed how quickly his forces had destroyed the enemy. Fleet 11 minutes from first shot to complete victory. Excellent work, Commander, said his second-in-command, Subfleet Leader Quintal. The human invasion force never had a chance. Vexter's mouth moved sideways in what humans might recognize as a smile. They thought they could fool us with talk of peace and diplomacy, but our sensors don't lie. He pointed at the data streams flowing across the wall screens. Numbers and graphs showed the energy signatures from the destroyed human vessels. Look at these readings, Quintal. There. Ships carried fusion reactors powerful enough to level our cities. Their so-called escort frigates had weapons that could crack moon surfaces. The intelligence reports were correct then, Quintal replied. Humans are a violent species. They probably planned to attack our colonies once they learned our defensive positions. Exactly. Vexter walked to the central command table where a 3-dimensional map of local space rotated slowly. By destroying them now, we've saved millions of Kelter lives. The High Council will reward us for our quick thinking. Senior Tactical Analyst Morvax approached the table carrying a data tablet. Commander, I've completed the detailed analysis you requested. The human vessels were definitely built for warfare, despite their diplomatic markings. Show me. Morvax activated a holographic display above the table. This is their largest ship, which they called the Unity. Notice the reinforced hull sections here and here. Those are clearly designed to withstand weapons, fire, and their power systems. Massive. Fusion reactors, sir. Far more powerful than any civilian vessel would need. These reactors could easily be converted into planet-killing weapons. Vexstar nodded with satisfaction. The Kelter Empire had survived for 3,000 years by striking first against potential threats. These humans had followed the same pattern as a dozen other aggressive species, approach with false offers of peace, study defensive positions, then attack when guards were lowered. What about survivors? He asked. Sensors detected approximately 40 escape pods, reported Quintal. Should we retrieve them for interrogation? No, let them return to their territory. When they tell others what happened here, it will discourage future human expansion into our space. Meanwhile, far across the galaxy on the small blue world called Earth, President Chodeho sat at the head of a long conference table. The emergency session of the Global Defense Council had been going on for 6 hours. Admiral Hannah sat to his right, her uniform still bearing scorch marks from her escape pod's rough landing. "Tell us again what you observed during the attack," President Cho said quietly. Admiral Hannah's voice was steady, but her hands trembled slightly. "The Kelter ships opened fire without warning. We had just transmitted our diplomatic package, cultural exchange data, trade proposals, peace treaties. Captain Song's ship was destroyed in the first salvo. She didn't even have time to send a distress signal." The room fell silent. Around the table sat the most powerful people on Earth: military commanders, government ministers, corporate leaders, and scientific advisors. All of them stared at the video footage playing on the main screen. Grainy images from Hannah's escape pod showed the systematic destruction of the diplomatic fleet. "How many casualties?" asked General Park Young-ho, chairman of the Joint Chiefs. 2,847 confirmed dead, Hannah replied, including Ambassador Lee Soo-jin's entire cultural delegation. 38 children were aboard the Unity for the historic first contact ceremony. Defense Minister Yoon Suwara leaned forward. "Our intelligence was completely wrong about Kelter intentions. They showed no interest in communication or negotiation." President Cho studied the faces around the table. These men and women had spent their careers preventing wars, negotiating peace treaties, building bridges between nations. Now, they all wore the same expression: cold, calculating anger. "Minister Yoon, what are our current military capabilities?" the president asked. Yoon consulted her tablet. "Active fleet strength is 212 ships. Most are patrol vessels and system defense platforms. We have 38 capital ships capable of deep space operations. Not enough to challenge a species that can field the ships we saw in the recordings," observed Admiral Kim Tae-jin, head of naval operations. "What if we mobilize everything?" President Cho pressed. "Reserves mothballed ships, converted civilian vessels." Defense Minister Yoon's fingers moved across her screen, calculating rapidly. "If we activate all reserves and convert civilian ships for military use, we could deploy approximately 800 vessels within 6 months. The conversion process would be expensive and require every shipyard in human space and Kelter fleet strength. Intelligence estimates they have around 200 ships total, Mr. President, but their technology appears more advanced than ours." President Cho was quiet for a long moment. He looked again at the footage of human ships being torn apart by alien weapons, families destroyed, children killed, an entire diplomatic mission murdered without provocation. "Begin immediate mobilization," he said finally. "Convert every civilian shipyard to military production. Recall all deep space vessels. Draft emergency powers to requisition private ships for conversion." "Sir," ventured Foreign Minister An Gawan, "perhaps we should try diplomatic channels first. Contact other species, explain what happened." The president's expression never changed. The Kelter made their choice when they opened fire on unarmed civilians. They wanted to see what humanity was capable of when threatened. His voice dropped to barely above a whisper. "They're about to find out." The sound of hammering never stopped at Luna Station. Chief Engineer Kang Dong-yoon walked through the construction bays at 3 in the morning, watching welders work by the light of their torches. Where luxury passenger liners had once taken shape, now warships grew like metal beasts. "How long since the night shift started?" he asked his assistant engineer Kim Hae-jin. 18 hours ago, sir. They refused to go home." Dong-yoon nodded. "You understood." Everyone had seen the footage from Admiral Hannah's escape pod. The images of children's toys floating among the wreckage had burned itself into every human mind. Now people worked until they collapsed, then dragged themselves back to work again. In Bay 7, a team of 40 workers swarmed over the hull of what had been a cruise ship called the Star Princess. Now, it would become the UES Retribution, armed with enough missiles to destroy a small moon. The workers moved with angry efficiency, their faces hard behind protective masks. "Production rates are up 30% from projections," Dong-Yoon reported during Admiral Hannah's inspection tour. Anger makes for efficient workers. Admiral Hannah stopped beside a massive plasma cannon being lowered into position. The weapon was twice as tall as a person and hummed with barely contained energy. How many ships will be ready for the first wave? 217 vessels, Admiral. Not all will be pretty, but they'll all be deadly. Across human space, the same transformation was happening everywhere. On Mars colony, the shipyards that built mining vessels now produced destroyers. The asteroid belt mining stations stopped harvesting ice and started manufacturing armor plating. Even the research stations around Jupiter had converted their laboratories into weapons factories. Captain Shin Woo-jin stood on the bridge of his new command. The U.S. knew Bujin. 6 months ago, it had been a colony transport designed to carry 10,000 settlers to new worlds. Now plasma cannons lined its hull like the spines of some prehistoric monster. The sleeping quarters for families had become missile storage bays. Weapons systems test in 30 minutes, announced his tactical officer, Lieutenant Park Soo. All gun crews report ready. Woojin looked out at his crew. Most of them had never served on a warship before. They were cargo handlers, passenger service specialists, navigation officers from peaceful merchant runs. But the massacre had changed them. It had changed all of humanity. My grandmother used to tell me stories about the old days, Woojin said during the pre-mission briefing. She lived through the Seoul incident of 2234, when terrorists attacked the city's transport hub. She always said humans are at their most dangerous when someone hurts their family. His crew listened intently. In the back row, communications specialist Lee Jeong wiped tears from her eyes. Her brother had been aboard the U.S. Unity, working as a cultural translator. The Kelter killed our diplomats, our scientists, our children, Woojin continued. They thought they were eliminating a threat. Instead, they just made every human in the galaxy into family. And you don't mess with human family. The biggest construction project was happening in the Titan shipyards, where chief designer Park Yoon-ji oversaw the building of humanity's first true dreadnought. The UES Vengeance was 5 kilometers long and carried weapons that could crack continents. Its main gun alone required the power output of a small star to fire. Armor plating installation is complete on sections 1 through 40, reported her assistant engineer Oh Min-seok. The reactive armor should stop anything the Kelter can throw at us. Yeonji walked along the massive hull, running her hand over it. The metal that would carry humanity's revenge to alien space. Each rivet, each weld, each circuit had been crafted with one purpose, to make the Kelter pay for their mistake. "What's the crew complement?" she asked. 8,000 personnel, including a full Marine battalion, for boarding operations. Captain Yu Ji-hoon will command. Good. The Kelter want to see what humans do when threatened. Captain, you will show them. As the weeks passed, ships gathered at Staging Point Gamma, a hidden military base in the dead space between star systems. Admiral Hannah watched from the bridge of her new flagship, the UES Herald, as her fleet assembled. Destroyers, cruisers, converted cargo haulers, retrofitted passenger ships, and the mighty Vengeance itself. 847 vessels in total, carrying more firepower than had ever been assembled in human history. Commander Bae Taeyoung, her tactical officer, studied the fleet roster with amazement. Admiral, half these ships didn't even exist 6 months ago. The industrial output is incredible. Fear and anger are powerful motivators, Hannah replied. The Kelter awakened something in us that we didn't know existed. In the fleet's converted hospital ships, medical teams prepared for casualties. Dr. Song Nari, chief surgeon aboard the UES Mercy, trained her staff on alien biology. If they were going to save human lives in combat against the Kelter, they needed to understand how their enemies were built. Remember, she told her surgical teams, we may face weapons we've never seen before. Plasma burns, gravitational injuries, exotic radiation damage. Stay flexible, stay calm, save lives. The final ship to join the fleet was the UES Unity 2, named for the diplomatic vessel that had been destroyed. Captain Imsubin commanded this new ship, built not for war, but for one specific purpose: to broadcast humanity's message to the Kelter homeworld. When the time came, Admiral Hannah stood on her bridge as the fleet prepared to jump to hyperspace. 847 ships, 200,000 crew members, and the collected fury of an entire species. Her final transmission to Earth was broadcast across all human worlds. They wanted war. Now they have it. The stars stretched into lines of light as humanity's revenge fleet disappeared into hyperspace. Carrying death toward Kelter Space. Commander Bei Junsu crouched in the shadows of an asteroid, watching the Kelter mining station through his ship's sensors. The alien facility hung in space like a metal spider, its long arms reaching out to harvest precious metals from the floating rocks. 43 Kelter workers moved between the processing units, completely unaware that death was coming. All ships report ready, Commander, whispered his tactical officer, Lieutenant Nam Ji-wan. The station's shields are down. They think they're safe this far from the border. Bei Jung-soo had commanded destroyer patrols for 8 years, but he had never led a surprise attack like this. His 3 ships, the UES Shark, the UES Wolf, and the EU's Viper, were built for speed and stealth. Perfect for what Admiral Hannah called Wolfpack tactics. Remember the briefing, he told his crew over the internal communications. No survivors, no warnings. They need to discover each attack only after it's too late to help. The first plasma torpedo struck the mining station's main reactor. The explosion lit up the asteroid field like a small sun. Within 30 seconds, twisted metal and alien bodies drifted through space where the facility had been. Bei Junsu felt no satisfaction, only cold purpose. The Kelter had started this war by murdering innocents. Now they would learn what that felt like. Next target is 72 light hours away, reported Navigator Kim Sulji. Another mining operation, this one with a small defense platform. Set course. Maximum stealth speed. 2 star systems away, Captain Oh Soyoung was leading her cruiser squadron into a very different kind of battle. Her sensors had detected 3 Kelter patrol ships moving through the Arcturus sector. Unlike the mining stations, these were military vessels with real weapons and trained crews. Enemy ships are changing course to intercept us, called out her weapons officer, Commander Park Won-pil. They're signaling for reinforcements. Jam their communications, Soyoung ordered. Don't let them call for help. The UES Thunder, UES Storm, and UES Lightning spread into attack formation. The Kelter patrol ships were larger than the human cruisers, but they had been built for police work against smugglers and pirates. They had never faced ships designed specifically for killing. Fire all forward batteries, Soyoung commanded. Human plasma beams carved through the Kelter ships like knives through paper. The aliens' shields, designed to stop asteroid impacts and energy weapons from their own technology, offered no protection against weapons developed through centuries of human warfare. The first Kelter ship exploded after taking only 3 hits. Their armor is pathetic, reported Commander Park with grim satisfaction. Our weapons are punching right through. That's because they've never fought a species like us, Soyoung replied. Most aliens probably negotiate their wars instead of fighting them. The second Kelter ship tried to retreat, but the human cruisers were faster. Lightning caught it with a full torpedo spread, breaking the alien vessel into burning pieces. The third ship managed to send a partial distress signal before Thunder's main guns silenced it forever. On the Kelter homeworld, Fleet Commander Vex stood in his command center, staring at reports that made no sense. Red markers covered the tactical display, each one representing a destroyed facility or lost ship. In just 2 weeks, the humans had wiped out 47 installations along the border. How are they moving so quickly? He demanded from his intelligence officer, Subcommander Quinhel. Our reports said humans were a primitive species with simple technology. Quinhal's 4 eyes showed fear as she reviewed the data. Sir, their ships appear to use some kind of advanced stealth technology. Our sensors can barely detect them until they're already attacking. And their weapons. She paused, struggling to find words. What about their weapons? They're cutting through our defenses like they don't exist. Shield generators that should stop any known energy beam are being destroyed in seconds. Hull armor that has protected our ships for centuries is melting under their fire. Vextar felt something he had never experienced before, genuine terror. Contact the Galactic Council immediately. Request emergency military assistance. Sir, I already tried. They refused. What? Why? The Council reviewed the recordings from the diplomatic incident. They ruled that we initiated hostilities against a peaceful contact mission. They will not intervene in what they call a war of our own making. Across the sector, Captain Lee Hoon-Wo was preparing for the largest single attack of the campaign. Kelter Station 7 was a massive fuel depot that supplied the entire eastern border fleet. Destroying it would cripple alien military operations for months. The station has 12 defense platforms, reported his tactical officer, Lieutenant Cho Min-jae, plus a full squadron of guard ships. This won't be easy, Hyun-woo nodded. His ship, the EU's Predator, was accompanied by 6 other converted cargo vessels. They looked nothing like military ships, which was exactly what he wanted. Signal the station. Tell them we're a refugee convoy fleeing the human attacks. Request emergency docking permission. The trick worked perfectly. Kelter controllers, overwhelmed by reports of human raids, waved the disguised ships through their defenses without proper scanning. By the time they realized their mistake, it was too late. All ships, target the main fuel tanks, Hoon-woo ordered as his fleet dropped their disguises and opened fire. Let's make this visible from 3 star systems. The explosion that followed could indeed be seen from neighboring systems. Kelter Station 7, along with enough fuel to power a battle fleet for a year, vanished in a chain reaction that lasted 4 minutes. As the flames finally died, Hyun-woo opened communications on all Kelter military frequencies. This is Captain Lee, Hyun-woo of the Human Defense Force. This is what happens when you murder innocents. We're coming for all of you. His message was heard on every Kelter ship and base within 50 light-years. The war was no longer distant news. It had arrived at their doorstep. Carried by an enemy they had completely underestimated. The stars stretched and snapped back to points of light as 847 human warships dropped out of hyperspace above Kelter Prime. The alien homeworld hung before them like a blue-green marble, beautiful and defenseless. Admiral Kim Hanna stood on the bridge of the UES Herald, her hands clasped behind her back as she watched her fleet arrange itself in perfect formation around the planet. Deployment complete, Admiral, reported Fleet Coordinator Commander Jung Se-han. All ships report, weapon systems armed and ready. Through the viewing window, Hannah could see the massive dreadnought use Vengeance, taking position above the planet's northern pole. Its main gun, capable of cracking continents, pointed down at the surface like the finger of an angry god. Around it, hundreds of smaller ships formed concentric rings of death. Admiral, called Communications Officer Im Tae-yong from his station. We're detecting movement from the planet's defense stations. Looks like 63 ships rising to meet us. Hannah almost laughed. 63 ships against 847. The Kelter were either very brave or very stupid. Probably both. Sir Fleet Commander Vextar is requesting to speak with you, Tae-yong continued. Put him on the main screen. The alien's face appeared, his 4 eyes wide with what humans might recognize as panic. His gray skin had turned pale, and his sideways mouth trembled as he spoke. Admiral, please. We must talk. There has been a terrible misunderstanding. Hannah stepped forward, her voice cold as vacuum. A misunderstanding. Is that what you call the murder of nearly 3,000 innocent people? Your ships appeared threatening to our sensors. We acted in accordance with our laws. You murdered diplomats, Hannah interrupted, her words cutting through the aliens' excuses like a blade. Children died in those ships, scientists, poets, teachers, people who came in peace to offer friendship. She leaned toward the screen. Now, you face the consequences. Vextar's image flickered as his ship's systems struggled under the electronic warfare assault from human vessels. Please, Admiral, we can negotiate. We can pay compensation. We can. Hannah cut the transmission with a gesture to Tai-Yong. Around her, the bridge crew waited in tense silence. These men and women had trained for months, converting civilian vessels into instruments of war, preparing for this moment. Now it had arrived. All ships, she broadcast to her fleet. You have your targets. Remember what they did to our people. Make them remember what happens when you murder human families. The battle began with a swarm of missiles, thousands of them, launched from every human ship at once, creating a cloud of death that blotted out the stars. The Kelter defense fleet tried to form a protective screen around their homeworld, but their ships had been designed for patrol work and minor conflicts. They had never faced an enemy that treated war as both art and science. Captain Yu Ji-hoon, commanding the UES Vengeance, watched his tactical display as Kelter ships died one by one. Their shields can't handle our plasma beams, he reported to Admiral Hannah. It's like shooting targets at a practice range. The largest Kelter vessel, probably Vextar's flagship, managed to fire several shots at the human fleet before a spread of torpedoes from the UES Retribution tore it apart. The explosion was visible from the planet's surface, a new star that burned briefly before fading to nothing. Admiral, called Tactical Officer Park Minji. Enemy resistance is collapsing. 15 Kelter ships destroyed. The rest are trying to retreat toward the outer system. Don't let any escape, Hannah ordered. I want every military vessel eliminated. Captain Shin Woojin, commanding the converted colony ship UAS New Busan, led a squadron of destroyers in pursuit of the fleeing aliens. His ship, once designed to carry families to new homes, now carried enough firepower to level cities. The irony wasn't lost on him as he hunted down ships that had murdered human children. Target the engines first, he instructed his weapons officer. Make them stop running, then finish them. The battle lasted 11 minutes, from first shot to final explosion. When it ended, debris from 63 Kelter warships rained down through the planet's atmosphere like burning tears. Some pieces were large enough to create meteor showers, visible across entire continents. Admiral Hannah opened communications channels to every Kelter world, every alien outpost, every species that might be listening. Her image appeared on screens across the galaxy, a human woman with scars on her face and ice in her eyes. This is Admiral Kim Hannah of the Human Defense Force, she began, her voice carrying to 1,000 worlds. 6 months ago, the Kelter Empire attacked and destroyed an unarmed diplomatic mission. They murdered nearly 3,000 innocent people, including children. She paused, letting her words sink in across the void. You wanted to test our resolve. You wanted to see what humans do when threatened. Now you know. Her expression never changed, cold and merciless as space itself. We don't start wars, but when someone else starts one with us, we finish it. Around Kelter Prime, the human fleet began forming up for the jump to hyperspace. Their work here was done. The Kelter Empire's military had been destroyed. Their shipyards were rubble. Their trade routes were cut. It would take them generations to recover, if they ever did. Remember, this day, Admiral Hannah concluded her broadcast. Remember what happens when you murder human families, and pray to whatever gods you worship that we never have to remind anyone again. The stars stretched into lines as 847 ships vanished into hyperspace, leaving behind a shattered empire and a galaxy that would never again mistake humanity for a weak species. The message was clear. Humans might arrive in peace, but they would leave in victory.